I was walking through the park when I saw my son on a bench, sitting there with his baby and a pile of suitcases. I asked him, "Why are you here instead of at my company's office, the one I put you in charge of?" He looked down. I was fired. My father-in-law said our blood doesn't match his. Said I'm bad for the brand. I just chuckled. "Get in the car, baby." He had no idea who had really been paying his father-in-law's salary all these years. Please subscribe to our channel and comment which state or city you're listening from. Enjoy the story. From the 25th floor, Chicago looks deceptively calm. Gray rooftops, the steel-colored river, endless lines of cars like ants carrying their loads. I stood by my office's tinted window, holding a cup of cold tea, watching it all. To some, it's just traffic. To me, it's the circulatory system of my business. Vance Logistics. A name that might not ring a bell for the average person, but one that opens any door in ports from New York to Los Angeles. I built this empire over 30 years. I started with one used truck and debts that would make most people consider a noose. I learned to be tough when necessary and invisible when it paid off. Especially invisible. Money prefers silence and big money loves dead silence. That's why you 1TT find my picture in the society pages. I always liked staying in the shadows, pulling the strings while others took the stage. It was my strategy, and it worked perfectly until recently. My eyes landed on the family photo on my desk. Marcus, my son. My only weakness and my biggest investment. 3 years ago, I took a step my partners would have called risky. I decided to test him. Not some pretend test where rich kids sit in daddy's office. No, I wanted Marcus to go through the real school of life. I bought a mid-sized logistics firm, Midwest Cargo, and I put someone else in charge. Not my son. I put Preston Galloway there, my son's father-in-law, a man whose ego was much larger than his bank account. Preston Galloway. I smirked at my reflection. The man was a walking cartoon of high society. He loved to talk about old money, heritage, how business is an art for the chosen. He didn't know one thing. Midwest Cargo belonged to me. Through a chain of offshore accounts, the ultimate owner of everything he was so proud of was me, the black woman he called a simple trucker behind my back. I sent Marcus to work for him as commercial director with no protection, no direct help from me. "Mama, I can handle it," Marcus told me then. "I want Tiffany and her father to respect me for me, not your checkbook." I agreed. I wanted him to learn to take a hit, to see the ugly side of people when they think they have power over you. And he saw it. Oh, he saw it. Every Sunday, I drove to their mansion in Lake Forest for dinner. That house, with its columns and perfect lawns, was the picture of Galloway ambition. The irony was the mortgage was indirectly paid from the dividends of my own company. But I stayed quiet. I sat at the table, cutting my roast beef, and I listened. "Marcus, who holds a glass like that?" Preston would sneer, adjusting his napkin. "This is a vintage Cabernet, not malt liquor from a corner store. You have so much to learn about etiquette. In our circle, small things betray one's breeding." My daughter-in-law, Tiffany, would just give a cold smile, stroking the diamond bracelet on her thin wrist. She never defended him. She enjoyed the humiliation. She looked at Marcus like a useful but slightly flawed accessory. "Daddy just wants what's best for you, honey," she'd say in her slow, sweet voice. "You should be grateful he took you under his wing. Where would you be without our family?" I drank my tea and remembered every word, every smirk. I saw my son's fists clench under the table. I saw the light fade from his eyes. But I waited. I'd given him my word not to step in until he asked. That was the deal. But in recent months, my intuition, the gut feeling that saved me back in the day, started growling. Something had changed. The air got thick. First it was small things. Reports from Midwest Cargo started coming late. Not a day or two, but a week. In logistics, a week is forever. Preston blamed it on a software update, staff optimization. But I know this business. When a director talks about optimization, he's hiding holes in the budget. Then Tiffany stopped taking my calls. Before, she'd at least pretend, hoping for expensive holiday gifts. Now just silence. We're at a reception. We have a charity evening. Tiffany is resting. It was like a wall went up. The final straw was Marcus. He came to see me a week ago just for half an hour. He looked terrible. Pale with hollow cheeks, his hands wouldn't stay still. He said he was fine, just busy closing the quarter. But I wasn't looking at his face. I was looking at his wrist. His watch was gone. The Patek Philippe I gave him for his 30th. A status piece, expensive but mostly sentimental. He never took it off. Where's the watch, son? I asked, pouring him coffee. He flinched and pulled his cuff down. At the repair shop, Mama. The clasp was loose. Figured I'd get it cleaned, too. A lie. I heard it not in his voice, but in the pause before he answered. Marcus never had a loose clasp, and he never lied to me so poorly. The watch wasn't being repaired. It was sold or pawned. Why would the commercial director of a successful firm pawn a watch? There was only one answer. He needed money urgently and couldn't ask me. After he left, I didn't call him or Preston. I called Luther, my head of security. I need a full audit of Midwest cargo, I said flatly, and find out what's going on at the Galloway house. Unofficially. Just watch. A week passed. The audit was still going, but the worry inside me was building by the hour, like pressure in a boiler. Today I decided not to wait for reports. I got in the car. Where to, Miss Ellie? Luther asked from the rear view. His calm, broad face usually grounded me. Just drive, Luther. Towards the lake. I want to see the autumn leaves. We drove slowly. Leaves fell on the wet asphalt. The city was getting ready for winter. We passed elite neighborhoods where, behind high fences, people led hidden lives of fake glitter. I knew the price of that glitter. Usually it was bought on credit. We turned toward a small park near the Galloway house. Usually it's nannies with strollers or older couples, but today it was empty and damp. And then I saw a figure. On a plain wooden bench at the edge of the park, a man sat hunched over, his head in his hands. Next to him were 3 large suitcases, and a little boy in a bright jacket was stomping in the fallen leaves nearby. My grandson. My heart jumped, but my mind stayed cold. I recognized that coat. I recognized that posture. The posture of a man who's had the ground pulled out from under him. Stop, I said. My voice was quieter than usual, but Luther stopped instantly. I didn't run out. I stepped out calmly, fixed my coat, and walked toward the bench. My steps on the gravel were sharp and even. Marcus only looked up when my shadow fell over him. His eyes were red, not from tears. Men in our family don't cry in public, but from exhaustion and despair. Mama! He said it like he was seeing a ghost. I looked at the suitcases, expensive leather sitting in the dirt. I looked at my grandson Trey, who saw me, smiled, and reached out his little hands. Then I looked back at my son. Why are you here, Marcus? I asked. My tone was even businesslike. No drama. I needed facts. Why aren't you at the office? Why aren't you home? He gave a bitter laugh and looked toward where the Galloway mansion spires showed through the trees. I don't have an office anymore, Mama. And I don't have a home. Explain. Preston fired me this morning for incompetence. An hour ago, Tiffany put my things out. Said she's filing for divorce. I stood quiet, taking it in. Incompetence. Divorce. Thrown out on the street with a child. What did she say, Marcus? Word for word. He clenched his fists so tight his knuckles turned white. She said she was tired of pretending. That I'm... His voice shook, but he made himself go on. That I'm a loser dragging their family down. And my father-in-law said, our blood doesn't match. Said, I'm too street for their high-class brand. The wind tore a yellow leaf from a branch and threw it at my feet. I looked at the leaf, then at the mansion in the distance. Too street. There was no pain inside me. Pain is for the weak. Inside, a switch flipped, the same one that turns on before tough negotiations to swallow a competitor. Only now the stakes weren't money. I looked at my grandson, picked him up. He smelled like milk and baby shampoo. Blood doesn't match, you say? I asked softly. A smile touched my lips. Not a motherly smile, but the one my competitors saw before they surrendered. "Get in the car, baby," I said to my son, nodding for Luther to get the suitcases. "Mama, I have nowhere to go. They blocked the corporate card. I don't even have cab fare." "Get in," I repeated, softly but in a way that left no room for argument. "We're going home." I opened the back door of my Maybach. Marcus, still dazed, looking like a beaten dog, sank into the leather seats. He had no idea that the man who just fired him for incompetence had been getting a salary from my pocket all these years, and that the house he was thrown out of stood on land owned by my holding company. Preston Galloway wanted to play aristocrat. Well, I was going to show him what real power looks like. I got in beside my son and took out my phone. Luther's name was on the screen. The game was on. The car door closed with that solid thud that shuts out the world. Inside, it smelled of expensive leather and quiet. Marcus sat with his head down, his hands limp on his knees. My grandson, worn out from the stress, was already asleep in his car seat, his cheek against the strap. I looked at my son's profile. In his slumped shoulders, you could see total defeat. He had believed them. He believed in family, respect, the idea that if you work hard and are honest, you'll be valued. Such naivete. But I didn't blame him. I blamed myself for letting this charade go on so long. I didn't comfort him with empty, "it'll be okay." In business and in life, okay doesn't just happen. It's the result of good planning and ruthless execution. I took out my other phone, the one only 5 people in the world have the number for. "Luther," I said as soon as he answered, "I need a full financial cross-section of Midwest cargo for the last 3 years. Not the IRS reports, the real money movement. Every transaction, every contractor, every check over $5,000. "Understood, Miss Ellie." "Deadline." "Yesterday." His voice was flat as ever. "And one more thing. Pull the documents on the Lake Forest property. Full ownership history, all liens, current land lease status." Marcus turned his head, confused. "Mama, why do you need that?" "The land under their house. It's their property. Preston always said it was the family estate." I almost laughed. A family estate built in '98 with money from bootlegging, which he successfully laundered through my own bank without a clue. "Son," I said, covering his cold hand with mine, "Preston Galloway has said a lot of things, but documents usually tell a different story. Rest. We're going home." As the car moved smoothly down the avenues, I didn't look outside. I worked. Tables, charts, and graphs were already on my tablet. My brain switched to calculator mode. The anger I felt seeing my grandson on that dirty bench had changed. It wasn't a hot emotion anymore. It was cold fuel, pure energy for action. I traced the company chain. Midwest Cargo, a subsidiary of Northern Logistics, which belongs to my holding company through a fund in the Cayman Islands. Preston Galloway was listed as CEO, but his powers were limited by the charter, a charter he apparently hadn't reread, or thought I, an old woman, had forgotten. And the land. The lot in Lake Forest. Technically, the house belongs to the Galloways, but the land is on a long-term lease from Zenith Development. And 100% of Zenith Development shares are in my office safe. The lease was up. I checked the date. In 2 months. And there was a clause about the lessor's right to review terms unilaterally in case of tenant bad faith. Bad faith. What a beautiful, simple phrase. I made a note. Point 1, lease audit. Marcus was quiet the whole ride. He was crushed by Tiffany's betrayal. I know that feeling when the people you protected stab you in the back. But I also know the best cure for a broken heart is being busy. And soon Marcus would have plenty to do. We pulled into my estate in Bington Hills. Pine trees, silence, a high fence. My rules applied here. As soon as we stopped, Luther got out and came around to open my door. In his hand was a thin gray folder. That was odd. He usually gave me documents in the office. If he was handing them over now, it was urgent. "Miss Ellie." He held out the folder as soon as my feet touched the cobblestones. "This came 10 minutes ago through a closed channel from the district precinct." I took it without changing my expression. I opened it. A report. Date today. Time 2:30 p.m. An hour after Marcus was kicked out. Complainant. Preston C. Galloway. Charge grand larceny. Subject. Marcus Vance, upon leaving the residence, secretly removed family valuables belonging to the Galloways, namely a collection of antique coins, 19th century silverware, and jewelry belonging to Mrs. Galloway. Estimated total value. $250,000. I closed the folder slowly, carefully. Mama, what is it? Marcus stood nearby, holding his sleeping son. He looked so vulnerable right then. Nothing, I lied calmly. Just some utility invoices. Go inside, Marcus. The nanny will take the baby. You need a shower and something to eat. I'll be in soon. He nodded and walked toward the porch. I watched until the door closed. Then I turned to Luther. My voice dropped to almost a whisper, but there was steel in it. They didn't just throw him out, Luther. They want to put him in prison. Luther's eyes narrowed slightly. $250,000. That's a felony. Up to 15 years. They want to make sure he doesn't claim any assets in the divorce. Blackmail with the criminal case. Exactly, I nodded. Stupid, greedy people. They think Marcus is just an ex-son-in-law with no one behind him. They forgot whose last name he has. I opened the folder again and looked at Preston's signature one more time, sweeping with flourishes, the signature of a man sure he's untouchable. Luther, I said, looking at the pine tops, I don't need just an audit anymore. I need a war. A total purge. Check all their loans, all personal accounts, all of Tiffany's contacts. Every step they've taken in the last 6 months. And find me the detective who took this report. I want to know his price. It'll be done. Where do we hit first? I smiled a little. Start small. Block their keycard access to the Midwest cargo office. Tomorrow morning, Preston Galloway will find out his electronic key doesn't work on his own office door. Let him run around, get nervous, while I find out what he's really been doing. I tapped the folder against my palm. They wanted to accuse my son of theft. Well, I was going to show them what real theft looks like. I was going to take everything from them, their business, their house, their reputation. Leave them with nothing but their high-class blood. Let's see how nutritious that is. I turned and walked into the house. For the first time in years, I felt completely alive. The machine was started. The gears were turning. And only one person could stop it, me. And I had no plans to stop. The office on the second floor of my house became a command center. My big oak desk was covered in papers. On the wall was a whiteboard where I'd started mapping the Galloway's connections. Marcus sat across from me, pale but pulled together. Next to him were 2 of my best lawyers and Victor. They didn't ask unnecessary questions, just clarified details. Marcus, remember this? And tapped her pen on the table. Did you sign this cargo acceptance form from China? Dated August 12th. My son frowned, rubbing his temples. No. In August I was on a business trip in Baltimore. I couldn't have signed that. But the signature is yours, Victor noted, showing a scan. A very good forgery. I watched from my chair. I didn't need to handle the details. My people knew their jobs. My job was the big picture. I opened my laptop and logged into the holding company's banking portal. Green lines glowed on the screen. Active credit lines for subsidiaries. There it was, Midwest Cargo. Overdraft limit. $1 million. That's the money the company uses for cash flow, salaries, rent, customs fees. Without it, Preston's business would choke in a week. I moved the cursor over the suspend service button. My finger hovered for just a second. Not from doubt, but from anticipation. It was like a surgeon clamping an artery. Only I was cutting off oxygen to a tumor. Click. Status changed to asterisk blocked by bank security. Reason, internal counterparty review. Asterisk, a nice, vague bureaucratic phrase, perfect for driving someone crazy. I leaned back and looked at another monitor. It showed live video from the surveillance cameras in the Midwest cargo office. My specialists installed those cameras 5 years ago for security. Preston thought they just recorded to a local drive. He didn't know a direct feed came to me. On the screen I saw his office. Preston Galloway was pacing, waving his arms. He was yelling at the head accountant, a poor woman with shaking hands. No sound, but from his red face and the veins in his neck, it was clear. He just tried to make a payment and the bank said no. He grabbed the phone. I knew who he was calling. Peter Henderson, the branch manager. Preston thought they were friends. They played golf on Thursdays. I picked up my phone and sent a quick text to Peter Henderson. * Preston will call. Tell him it's a system glitch. New York is running algorithm checks. Timeframe unknown. No exceptions. *. On the screen I saw Preston freeze with the phone to his ear. Then his face fell. He started arguing, banged his fist on the desk. Then he slammed the phone down. System glitch, I read on his lips. He believed it. Of course he did. In his world he's the big shot and the bank is just a service. It would never occur to him that the bank is me. He sat down, loosened his tie, and poured some water. You could see him calming down. * It's nothing. They'll fix it tomorrow. * He didn't understand this wasn't a glitch. It was a tourniquet and I was going to tighten it slowly. Mama! Marcus's voice brought me back. We found something else. Look. He handed me a printout. It was a loan agreement in his name from a private lender for $50,000, using his car as collateral. I didn't sign this. Who's the lender? I asked, scanning it. Fast Cash LLC. I looked at Luther by the door. He nodded and left. In 10 minutes I'd have a file on Fast Cash. It was probably a shell company for Preston. The scheme was simple, like everything this aristocrat did. Pile debt on the son-in-law, take the property, pocket the cash. Don't worry, I told my son. This paper isn't worth the ink. We'll get a handwriting analysis. But first. Marcus's phone on the table buzzed. Tiffany's picture lit up the screen. The room went quiet. Marcus reached for it, but I stopped his hand. Put it on speaker. Stay quiet. I'll talk. I quickly changed my mind. No, wait. If I answer, she'll get suspicious. She needs to think you're broken and alone. Answer, but promise nothing. Just listen. Record it. Marcus took a deep breath, hit accept, and the record icon. Hello. Well? Had enough, hero. Tiffany's voice was pure venom and triumph. How was sleeping at the train station? Or did you run to mommy? Marcus clenched his jaw, looking at me. I motioned for him to stay calm. What do you want, Tiff? I want to wrap this up neatly. Her tone switched to business, but the fakeness was obvious. Daddy is willing to drop the police report. We're not monsters, Marcus. We get it. You slipped. You stole. It happens when you're broke. I didn't steal anything, Marcus said. Shh, don't shout, she cut him off. Listen. You come to the notary tomorrow, sign a paper. Just a formality. An admission that you borrowed money from the company safe. A small sum, just $100,000. That's the price of your freedom, honey. You sign, the report vanishes. She paused, savoring it. And I'll let you see Trey on weekends. Under my supervision. I felt everything inside me go cold. Blackmail. Using a child. The lowest thing. And if I don't sign? Marcus asked, hollow. Then you go to jail, she said simply, like she was talking about the weather. And your son gets a new daddy. A normal one from our circle. Daddy's already found someone for me. Think, Marcus. You have until morning. Click. Marcus dropped the phone on the table and put his head in his hands. She's a monster. I stood and walked to the window. The sun was setting, painting the sky blood red. A beautiful bloody sunset. No, Marcus, I said quietly. She's not a monster. She's just a fool. A greedy, self-obsessed fool. I turned to my lawyers. You heard. We heard, Miss Ellie, and said. Attempted extortion, blackmail, coercion. The recording is perfect. Good. Add it to the file. I looked back at the monitor. Preston was still in his office, staring at the wall. He thought he'd won. He thought he had us cornered. He didn't know Tiffany had just handed me the detonator to blow their lives apart. Luther, I said as he came back in. New task. We need to set up a meeting with a notary. Not their guy. A real one. And prepare the papers to buy up all of Preston's bank debts. Every last one, even his car loan. You want to be his only creditor? I want to be his only nightmare. I went over and put a hand on my son's shoulder. Tomorrow you're not going anywhere. Tomorrow we hit back. But not where they expect. I smiled. It was the smile of a predator that finally smells blood. They wanted a confession. They'd get one. But it would be a confession of their own worthlessness. The next evening, Marcus and I didn't go to any notary. Instead, I put on my serious gray suit, high quality but deliberately plain, no labels, no flashy jewelry. I looked exactly how they pictured me. A comfortable retiree, a widow who got lucky once and now spends her days watering plants. We went to a pre-auction cocktail party at a modern art gallery. This was Preston's turf. Here were the people he considered his circle, gallery owners, antique dealers, heirs of old names, and new money desperately trying to buy a history. Preston and Tiffany were there, shining. Tiffany was in a new champagne-colored dress, bought, I'm sure, on the Midwest Cargo corporate card under entertainment. Preston, flushed from cognac, was holding court. I took a mineral water and stood in the shadow of a column near their group. No one noticed me. I was part of the scenery. Oh, it was such a drama. Tiffany was saying theatrically. Marcus just vanished. Couldn't handle the pressure. Business at this level takes steel nerves. And well, let's say he was too simple. Street background. You know. A woman nodded sympathetically. Poor Tiff, left alone with a child and a business. Oh, we'll manage, Preston cut in, adjusting his bow tie. The Galloway family has seen worse. We're cutting away dead weight. Sometimes you have to prune a rotten branch so the tree can grow. By the way, I have great news. We're bringing in a major investor from Europe, taking the company to a new level. I almost choked on my water. A European investor? With his accounts frozen and a zero balance? This wasn't a lie, it was a fantasy. But people listened. They nodded. They believed the pretty picture. Preston noticed me. For a second, irritation flashed in his eyes, like he'd seen a stain on the tablecloth. Then he put on a mask of noble condescension and walked over. Mrs. Vance, he boomed, drawing attention. What a surprise. You've come out into society. He came closer, his expensive cologne and alcohol breath washing over me. I came to hear about your successes, Preston, I said softly, looking him right between the eyes. And to see how my grandson is. He gave a patronizing smile and patted my shoulder. I barely stopped myself from brushing his hand off. The grandson is wonderful. He has a new nanny with an Oxford accent. As for successes, you know, Mrs. Vance, I've been meaning to talk to you. Marcus is a good boy. Truly. But not an eagle. He didn't have the breeding, the understanding of nuance. We tried to lift him up, educate him, but genes are stubborn. Don't take it badly, but he just couldn't carry our weight. I see, I said like an echo. Yes, you see, he went on, animated. Big business is a game for the chosen. You need vision, courage, connections. And Marcus. He counted paper clips. Petty. A sign of a poor spirit. But don't worry, we'll look after him. If he signs the papers, we won't let him starve. Maybe get him a job as a driver in our fleet. He likes cars. I nodded, taking a sip of water to hide my smile. A driver in the fleet I bought. You're very generous, Preston. We try. He puffed out his chest. Well, excuse me. Business calls. Investors don't like to wait. He turned and walked into the crowd. He didn't go to any bankers or famous patrons. He went to a far corner, toward a service exit where a short, balding man with shifty eyes stood. I knew him. Boris the Owl Fillmore. In certain circles, he was known as a cleaner. He didn't wash floors, he laundered dirty assets, bought stolen goods, helped make inventory disappear. If Preston was talking to the owl, it meant one thing. He wasn't looking for an investor. He was looking for a fence. I discreetly took out my phone, covered it with my clutch, and turned on the camera. The zoom let me see their faces clearly. Preston was talking fast, pointing at his phone. The owl listened, then nodded and took out a notepad. I saw Preston hand him a small black flash drive. What was on it? Client lists? Shipping schedules? Titles to equipment? I remembered his words about pruning. He wasn't just throwing Marcus out. He was stripping the company's assets before I could step in. He thought the bank problem was temporary and needed cash now. He was selling trucks, trucks for cash under the table. This wasn't just theft anymore. This was grand larceny conspiracy. My phone vibrated. A text from Luther. Miss Ellie, we cracked their messages. They're selling 10 Mack trucks tomorrow morning. Buyer is linked to organized crime. Price 30% of market. Cash. I looked at Preston. He was shaking the owl's hand, smiling. He was selling my property to criminals for pennies to buy himself a little more time playing the aristocrat. This was a mistake. A fatal one. I finished my water and put the glass on a passing tray. Thank you, I said to the air. Preston walked past me again, glowing from his deal. Still here, Mrs. Vance? He tossed over his shoulder. Don't mope. Try the caviar canapés. They're supposed to be decent. At least eat like a person for once. Enjoy your meal, Preston, I answered. Enjoy it while you can. He didn't slow down, sure I was just a bitter old woman. He didn't hear the finality in my voice. I walked out of the gallery. Marcus was waiting in the car. Well? He asked anxiously. Better than I hoped, I said, buckling in. They didn't just make a mistake, Marcus. They handed themselves to us. Your father-in-law is selling our trucks for scrap tomorrow morning. Marcus went pale. But that's it. If the trucks are gone, they're not going anywhere. I took out my phone and dialed the police chief. We went way back to when I helped outfit their patrol cars. Hello, Chief Miller. It's Ellie Vance. Yes, long time. I have a tip. Official. Planned sale of stolen vehicles, 10 semis tomorrow morning. Yes, I'll send plates and addresses. Need to catch both seller and buyer in the act. Yes. Thank you. I owe you one. I hung up and looked at my son. Tomorrow Preston Galloway gets his investment in the form of handcuffs. But that's just the start. I want to know where the stolen money went before this, and why he's so confident dealing with the owl. There's something else, something deeper. The car started moving. I looked at the city lights. Preston thought I was a harmless old lady. He didn't know I was the iceberg that just tore open the hull of his Titanic, and the water was pouring in. I didn't sleep that night. Not from nerves that had been replaced by cold focus, but from anticipation. In the morning, Luther was bringing the full audit results, including deleted files recovered from Midwest Cargo servers. At 7 a.m. I was in my office. A cup of strong coffee sat untouched. Luther came in without knocking. By his face I knew. It was much worse than we thought. His face is usually a concrete slab, but now there was hard disgust at the corners of his mouth. He put a thick black folder on my desk. Not gray. Black. Our unspoken code. Critical threat. Read, Miss Ellie. Just keep steady. I opened it. The first page was a report on Marcus's credit history. I scanned the numbers and my blood went cold. Not from fear but from pure revulsion. In my son's name, 12 loans had been taken out from different banks, from major ones to payday lenders. Total, $1.5 million. All within the last 6 months. The signatures, Luther said tonelessly. Forensics confirmed. High-quality forgeries from a plotter. But that's not the worst. Page 5. I turned the page. Scans of surety agreements. For these loans, the guarantor was Midwest Cargo, and the collateral was the personal property of the CEO. On paper, Marcus took the money and Preston, the kind father-in-law, vouched for him with the company's assets. The scheme was diabolical and cynical. They took the money, funneled it offshore through shell companies, the list was on the next page, and hung the debt on Marcus. When it came time to pay, they'd declare Midwest Cargo bankrupt due to Marcus's mismanagement and put him away for fraud. They weren't just stealing. They were building his scaffold brick by brick, month by month. While we ate Sunday dinner, while Tiffany smiled at her husband, they were methodically planning his ruin. "That's not all," Luther said, his voice even quieter. "We got into Tiffany's cloud storage. There's a folder called Dirt." He put a tablet in front of me and hit play. On the screen was video from a hidden camera in their bedroom. Marcus sat on the edge of the bed, tired and upset. Tiffany walked around him. Her voice sounded caring, but the words were targeted. "Marcus, you're so nervous lately. Maybe you should take something. You've gotten aggressive. You're scaring the baby." "I'm not aggressive, Tiff. I'm just tired." Marcus snapped. "See? You're shouting. You're unstable." The video cut. Next file. Another setup. She pushed him to yell, to cry, to lose control. She wasn't calming her husband. She was training him, getting footage to show in court later. "Look," she could say. "He's unhinged. He can't have the child." I hit pause. My hand wasn't shaking. It was hard as stone. If I'd had any moral limits left, after all, they were my grandson's family. They were gone now. These weren't people. They were parasites, ruthless predators feeding on my son's life. "Is there more?" I asked, my voice icy. "Yes. The most important part. At the end." I turned to the last pages and stopped. Pledge agreement. Borrower Midwest Cargo LLC. Lender. An investment fund in the Cayman Islands. Amount $5 million. Collateral. General license for international freight transportation. Number 78A1. The air in the office got thick. License 78A1. That wasn't a Midwest Cargo license. That was the license of the parent company, Vance Logistics. My license. The heart of my entire empire. The document without which hundreds of trucks stop, warehouses close, contracts with national chains collapse. Preston had no right to even touch it. He didn't have access to the original. "How?" I breathed. "They made a duplicate," Luther answered. "Through a corrupt notary. They certified the copy as original and pledged it. The money is supposed to hit their account today by noon. If they get that wire, they vanish, and the creditors come to us for the license." I closed the folder slowly. $5 million. The price for which they sold not just Marcus but me too. They decided I was an old fool who wouldn't notice until it was too late. They went all in. I stood and walked to the window. Down in the yard, Marcus was playing with his son, tossing him in the air. The boy laughed. My son, my grandson. And these creatures wanted to take everything from them. Freedom, future, name. A wave rose inside me. But it wasn't panic. It was power. The power of a tsunami, already formed and moving inexorably toward shore. "Luther," I said without turning, "stop that wire. Any means. Call the Fed, the FBI, use our people in financial monitoring. That money cannot reach them. We'll do it. And them." I turned to the mirror. I saw my reflection. No pity in my eyes. With them, we don't just stop them. We let them dig their own grave deeper. I went back to the desk and picked up the phone. Tiffany wanted to meet to get Marcus's confession. She wouldn't get it. But she'd get another offer. One her greed wouldn't let her refuse. I looked at the pledge agreement for the license. They bet everything. That meant they had to lose everything, including their freedom. I dialed Tiffany's number. "Hello, Tiff. It's Eleanor Vance. Yes, I know about the police. I know about the debts. No, don't hang up. I'm not calling to fight. I'm calling to make a deal. I want to buy his freedom." Pause on the other end. I heard her breathing, greedy, ragged, a predator scenting easy prey. "What are you offering?" she asked cautiously. "The condo. My condo on the Gold Coast. And the summer house. In exchange for dropping the report and waiving alimony." "The condo." The light cut through her voice. "The penthouse." "Yes. But I need your written guarantee. Of course, she almost squealed. When? Today, 3 p.m. At the Conservatory Cafe. Come alone. Click. She took the bait. Of course she did. Greed was always her weakness. She thinks she won. She thinks I caved. She doesn't know I'm going to that meeting not with condo papers, but with a wire and a tactical team in the next room. Preston pledged my empire. Tiffany tried to destroy my son's mind. Now there would be no mercy. None at all. The Conservatory Cafe was picked for a reason. A quiet spot downtown full of palms and ficus trees, giving an illusion of comfort and safety. The perfect place for a heart-to-heart. And for a trap. I got there 10 minutes early, took a table in the back by a window. I wore a simple beige blouse and an antique cameo brooch my husband gave me. Today, the brooch had a special job. Inside was a professional-grade microphone. I ordered tea and waited. My phone was on the table, screen down. Luther and his team were in a van outside listening. 2 plainclothes officers sat at the next table, pretending to be a couple. Tiffany showed up right at 3. She looked different. Where was the glamorous socialite? Now she was a modest, tearful woman in a gray cardigan. No makeup, eyes red. Good acting. If I didn't know the truth, I might have felt sorry for her. Mrs. Vance! She rushed over, almost knocking over a chair. Thank you for meeting me. I'm so worried, so scared for Marcus. She plopped down and grabbed my hands. Her palms were damp and cold. Calm down, Tiff, I said softly, letting my voice tremble just enough for the part of a scared mother. Tell me what's happening. Marcus says he's innocent, but oh, Mrs. Vance, she sobbed, dabbing her eyes with a napkin. Marcus. He's not himself. Gambling, maybe. Or bad friends. He took everything from the house. The family silver. Daddy's coins. Daddy is furious. He wants to put him in prison. Says a thief belongs behind bars. I listened and nodded, looking into her honest eyes. I saw her watching my reaction. Asterisk, does the old fool believe? Is she scared? Asterisk. But prison, Tiff. I pressed a hand to my chest near the brooch. He has a son. Your son. Would you really let the father of your child go to jail? Tiffany sniffled and lowered her voice to a whisper. I tried, Mrs. Vance. I begged Daddy. I said, Daddy, think of your grandson. But he won't budge. The damage is huge. $250,000 plus emotional distress. He says only full repayment will stop him. She paused, letting me feel the hopelessness. I don't have that kind of money, Tiff, I whispered. Everything's in the business. The accounts are watched. You know that. I know. She covered my hand with hers. But I found a way. Daddy. He respects real estate. If we give him something of equal value like your condo on the Gold Coast, he'll drop the charges. I'll convince him for the baby's sake. There it was. The condo. A 5-bedroom penthouse worth nearly $3 million. It wasn't compensation, it was a jackpot. I looked at her. Behind the fake tears, her eyes had the cold fire of greed. She was already mentally moving in. But it's my only home, I said. Where will I go? Oh, please. She waved a hand. You can live at the estate in Bington Hills. The air is good for you. And we'll just treat the condo as collateral. Temporary until Marcus pays back what he took. I promise. An honest promise from a woman who forged her husband's signature and filmed his breakdowns. I sighed deeply, playing the part of someone giving in. Okay, Tiff. If it's the only way to save my son, I agree. I'll sign over the condo. But I need to be sure. If I give you the papers, you'll drop the report today? And forgive all these made-up debts. I stressed made-up. Of course, she exclaimed, eyes flashing. I swear on my child's health. As soon as we sign the deed of gift, the pledge agreement, Daddy will call the detective. The case will be closed. Marcus will be free. And a receipt? You'll give me a receipt saying there are no more claims. Yes, anything. She dug in her bag. I even have a form. Daddy prepared it just in case. She put a paper on the table. I glanced at it. It wasn't a settlement. It was a straight deed of gift for the apartment, with no conditions. Tiff, this says deed of gift, I said, sounding confused. It's to simplify things, Mrs. Vance, she rattled off. Fewer taxes. You know how bureaucracy is. We're family. We won't cheat you. I looked at her for a long moment. Okay, I said quietly. I'll sign tomorrow. I need to get the documents. Tomorrow. Disappointment flashed in her voice. Can't we do it today? Daddy is so angry. I'm scared he might change his mind by morning and let the case go forward. The documents are in a bank safety deposit box, Tiff. The bank is closed. Tomorrow morning. 10 a.m. At the notary. Fine, she agreed reluctantly, putting the paper away. 10 a.m. But please don't be late. Every minute counts. She stood, gave me a quick dry peck on the cheek like a snake bite and hurried out. Till tomorrow, Mrs. Vance. Everything will be fine. I stayed at the table. The waiter brought the check. I paid, leaving a big tip. Luther, you get all that? I asked, touching the brooch. Every word. His voice came in my earpiece. Extortion, fraud, coercion. We have the full package. Good. Follow her. I walked out and got into Luther's car. He handed me a tablet. Look. We intercepted her messages. On the screen was a text chain. Tiffany. Asterisk, the old fool bought it. Condo is ours. She signs tomorrow. Asterisk. Preston. Asterisk, good work, daughter. I knew she'd break. Get the champagne ready. Turn the guy into the cops right after the deal. Let him learn his place. Asterisk. I read it. An icy calm spread through me. They never planned to keep their word. They wanted the apartment and to put Marcus in jail. They wanted to wipe us out completely. Old fool, I repeated out loud. Well, let's see who the fool is. Miss Ellie, Luther said. We have enough to arrest them now. No, I shook my head. Arrest is too easy, too fast. They think they're victims. I want their fall to be public. I want everyone in this city to know what they are, so even the rats turn away. Tomorrow is Preston's big night. The Entrepreneur of the Year award. All of Chicago's elite will be there. He wants glory. He'll get it. You want to strike at the ball. I want them to fall from the highest point. Prepare the documents, Luther. We're buying all their debts. Every penny. Tomorrow morning, I become the owner of their lives. And when Preston goes on stage for his award, I'll be there to give him the real prize. The car moved. I looked at the city they thought was their playground. Tomorrow the game was over. And I was writing the rules. The day of reckoning came. It was sunny and clear, just like my plan. While Tiffany waited at the notary's, nervously checking her watch, I didn't show up. I sent a message about a sudden migraine. Instead, I was in the office of the chairman of Northern Capital Bank. Eleanor, are you sure? He asked, looking over a thick stack of assignment agreements. You're buying the debts of Preston C. Galloway and Midwest Cargo LLC at a discount, but the sum is still huge. It's a risky asset. It's not an asset, Paul, I said, signing the last page with my fountain pen. It's a tool. And I know how to use it. At noon sharp it was done. Now I own not just the land under their house. I own their mortgage, their car loans, their overdrafts, even Tiffany's credit card debts from her Milan shopping sprees. I was their only creditor, their judge and jury. Thank you, I said, standing and shaking his hand. One more request. Freeze all their accounts. Right now. Reason. Suspicious activity and change of creditor. It'll be done. I walked out. The air felt especially fresh. I got in the car where Marcus was waiting. He was in a new tailored suit, clean-shaven, calm. I'd given him back his confidence. I'd given him back himself. Ready? I asked. Yes, Mama. Then let's go. The ball awaits. The charity gala, Evening of White Nights, was at the Palmer House Hilton. Glittering luxury, the city's elite. Preston Galloway was supposed to be the star. He was getting Entrepreneur of the Year for his innovative approach to logistics. an innovative approach that involved stealing from his mother-in-law. We entered through a side door unseen by the press. I took a seat in a box hidden by velvet curtains. From here I had the whole hall in my hand. I saw Preston. He stood in the center of the room, shining like a polished samovar. He wore a Brioni tuxedo, bought no doubt with stolen company money. Next to him, Tiffany, in a scarlet dress with a deep neckline, laughed at some senator's joke. They looked like winners. They thought I was broken and Marcus crushed. But something was off. People smiled at Preston, shook his hand, but as they walked away they whispered. The looks weren't admiring. They were curious, like watching a tightrope walker who doesn't know the rope is cut. Preston felt it too. I saw him adjust his tie nervously, his smile growing strained. He looked around for his partners for the owl. They weren't there. The owl, by the way, was already giving a statement at the FBI. At 7:55, 5 minutes before Preston was to go on stage, I gave Luther the signal. Now. Luther pressed a button on his tablet. Down in the hall, Preston's phone buzzed. He took it out casually. The busy man glanced at the screen and froze. Through my binoculars, I saw the color drain from his face. He went white as his shirt. A message from the bank. Your accounts are frozen. Access denied. Reason: suspicious transactions. Please contact the new creditor. He started frantically poking his phone, trying to log in. Error. Error. He looked up and met Tiffany's eyes. She was looking at her phone too. Daddy, she mouthed silently. The cards aren't working. The catering payment failed. Preston looked around. Sticky fear started seeping through his mask of arrogance. He knew something was wrong, but not how wrong. He thought it was a mistake, a glitch, a bad joke. The host on stage announced. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the moment we've all been waiting for. A man who proves business can be an art. Please welcome Preston Galloway. The applause was thin. Preston flinched. He had to go up, walk, smile. While his phone kept buzzing with seizure notices. He took a step, then another. His walk was stiff. He climbed the stairs like he was walking to the gallows. I put a hand on Marcus's shoulder. Watch, son. Remember this. This is what a man looks like who built his house on sand. And now the storm hits. I nodded to the technician at the AV controls. He was my guy. On the huge LED screen behind Preston, instead of his company logo and pretty growth charts, a video started to load. Preston reached the microphone. He opened his mouth to give his speech about tradition and honor. He didn't get a word out. Behind him, filling the whole hall, came Tiffany's voice, loud and clear over the powerful speakers. The old fool bought it. Condo is ours. She signs tomorrow. And Marcus, let him sit in jail for a while. Teach him a lesson. Daddy, you're a genius. The hall gasped. Dead silence. Preston turned around. On the screen in giant resolution was a screenshot of their texts. Next to it, a scan of Marcus's forged signature and a forensic report, fraud. Preston staggered, grabbing the podium to keep from falling. I stood up in my box. The spotlight, following my script, found me in the darkness. Good evening, Preston. My voice, calm and commanding, carried without a microphone. I'm that old fool. And I've come to collect my debts. Every head turned to me. Hundreds of eyes, but I looked only at him. At the man who thought he was a king but was standing there naked. The trap had sprung. I walked down from the box slowly. Every step echoed in the silent hall like a metronome. Marcus walked behind me head high. I felt hundreds of stares, shocked, scared, hungry for scandal. But for me there was only one person. Preston. He stood on the stage, gripping the podium, knuckles white. His face was blotchy. Sweat ran down his temples under the stage makeup. The screen behind him kept playing the evidence. Forged documents, money trails, clips of Tiffany's tantrums. It wasn't just dirt. It was the anatomy of their rot. When I reached the stage, Preston suddenly came alive. Fear turned into the rage of a cornered rat. He grabbed the mic and his voice, breaking into a squeal, cut the air. This is a lie. A montage. A deepfake. He pointed at the screen, then at me. This woman is insane. She's vengeful because we had to let her talentless son go. Security, remove her. Security didn't move. The head of Palace Security caught my eye and gave a slight nod. He knew who was really paying for this party. Gentlemen. Preston appealed to the crowd, spreading his arms like a martyr. You know me. I am Preston Galloway, a man of honor. And this is just a market trader. A woman from the slums who got lucky in the 90s. She envies our breeding, our culture. The hall was silent. No one stood for him. No one shouted shame. Business people have an animal sense for losers. And right now, Preston reeked of failure. I walked onto the stage calmly and stood beside him. He was taller, but right then he seemed small and hunched. I stepped to the mic. Preston tried to push me, but Marcus gently but firmly took his wrist. Don't, Dad, he said quietly. Just listen. I looked at the crowd, then at Preston. Preston Galloway. You're right about one thing. I did start in the slums. I loaded crates, slept in a truck cab, counted every penny. And you know what? Those slums you look down on paid for the house you slept in last night. They bought this tuxedo. They bought you your status. Preston opened his mouth, but I raised a hand for silence. You said our blood doesn't match. That it's too simple. Well, I have good news. You're free of that simple blood. I'm releasing you from the burden. I took a thin folder from my purse and laid it on the podium. What is this? He wheezed. A notice of liquidation. Your firm no longer exists. Midwest Cargo is bankrupt. All assets go to the primary creditor. Me. You can't, he started, his voice trembling. I can. As the holder of 100% of your debt, I've also terminated the land lease under your mansion. Clause 4.2. Bad faith conduct of the tenant. Stealing from your landlord is very bad faith, Preston. He swayed. His eyes darted around, looking for support, finding only cold, detached faces. And finally, I pointed to the screen where a prosecutor's memo now glowed. I've given the originals of all this to the FBI. Forgery, fraud, grand larceny. You wanted to send my son to prison. You dug the pit. Now you get to lie in it. Preston looked at me, and I saw his world crumbling in his eyes. His fake world of lies and other people's money. You've destroyed everything, he whispered. You destroyed a family. No, Preston, I said. I just turned on the lights. And what you called a family turned out to be a nest of cockroaches. Then came the final chord, the piece of hysteria I was waiting for. Tiffany, who had been standing frozen, suddenly broke. Her face twisted into a mask of insane rage. Bitch! She shrieked, lunging at me, fingers hooked like claws aiming for my face. I hate you. I'll kill you. Give me my money. The crowd gasped. Marcus moved to shield me, but he wasn't fast enough. Luther, appearing from the shadows of the wings, caught her wrist in midair. Easily, professionally, Tiffany dangled from his grip, kicking. Her scarlet dress rode up, showing ridiculous lace underwear. It was the end. The end of the lady act. The end of dignity. Luther set her down but didn't let go. With his other hand, he took a folded paper from his jacket and put it in her free hand. Citizen Tiffany Galloway, he said in his flat baritone, picked up by the stage mic, this is an eviction notice. The marshals are at the property now. You have 2 hours to collect personal items. A list of permitted items is attached. Jewelry, furs, and art are seized to settle the debt. Tiffany looked at the paper, then at me, then at her father, and she howled. Not a cry. The howl of a beaten dog whose bone was taken. Daddy! Do something! Daddy! But Daddy couldn't do anything. Preston slumped to the floor right on the stage, head in his hands. His tuxedo was wrinkled, his bow tie crooked. He was crushed, not by me, but by his own greed and stupidity. I looked down at them. This couple who an hour ago thought they were the elite. Marcus, I said calmly. Let's go. We're done here. My son came to me, took my arm. He didn't look at his ex-wife. He looked ahead toward the exit. "Good evening, everyone," I said to the hall. "I hope you enjoyed the show. Check your pockets. Around people like this, you always need to be careful." We walked off the stage into dead silence. The crowd parted like the Red Sea. I walked straight, feeling the warmth of my son's hand. I felt no gloating, just tiredness and huge, clean relief. The tumor was cut out. The body could start to heal. At the exit, I looked back. Security was helping Preston up. Tiffany was thrashing, trying to hit Luther with her purse. They got exactly what they deserved. Public shame and total ruin. "Let's go home, Mama," Marcus said. "Trey is waiting." "Let's go," I smiled. Now we're really going home. 2 weeks passed. The name Galloway is now whispered in Chicago like a disease. Preston sits in jail, waiting for trial on 5 major counts. His lawyers change faster than the weather. He has no money to pay them. Tiffany lives in a 400-square-foot studio in Gary, Indiana. She finally has to do her own laundry and count change at the grocery store. Let her get used to it. It's a useful experience. Marcus is back as CEO. But he's different now. The softness the predators liked is gone from his eyes. Now there's steel. He works hard, clean. No unnecessary emotion. Yesterday, he fired the head of procurement for taking kickbacks and didn't even blink. He learned the lesson. And me? I'm sitting on that same park bench where it all started. Golden autumn around me. The air is clear and fresh. But now there are no suitcases, no despair. My grandson, rosy-cheeked and happy, runs down the path chasing a fat pigeon. His laughter rings like a bell, breaking the silence. I put down my phone. No urgent messages, no worried calls. My empire runs like clockwork. My flank is secure. I feel a sunbeam on my cheek. And for the first time in many years, I don't want to run anywhere. I didn't just save my son. I gave him the Real inheritance. The understanding that dignity isn't in your genes or a title. It's something you defend every single day. I take a simple steel thermos from my bag. No silver, no gold, and pour hot time tea into the cup lid. Steam rises into the autumn air. A woman with a stroller walks by. She catches my eye. I smile at her simply, openly, no Iron Lady mask. She smiles back. I have nothing left to hide. And no one left to fear. I am free.